Welcome to PJ Maybe's YouTube channel, and hi, I'm PJ, this is Gordon, and we're going
Hello.
to discuss Stargate SG1.
Yeah, have a blather about it, why not?
Yeah, so, did you watch, you've watched season 1 and you've caught up? That's a silly question because we're on season 2
Yeah,
now.
yeah. So I watched season one in a bit of a hurry there. I managed to get through all of it. I didn't know if I was going to manage to get the episodes in for today for our chat. But I managed to watch. I watched like I watched 6 episodes of season 2 today, taking me up to actually episode 12, believe it or not. So yeah, I managed to get caught up in time. Yeah, no, it's been a long time since I've seen Stargate. You know, when I first watched it, I think I was like a lot of people. Must have been in my early-ish teens. I'm 32 now, and this came out. When did it come out? It was like 19. It was 1997, 1998.
97, 98, I think it was.
Yeah, 97, 98. So you know that's 22 years ago. Oof. Anyway, yeah. So I watched it when I was very young, and one of the things I was just saying to PJ here before we got started was, I can't believe that Jack O'Neill, you know, Richard Dean Anderson is 70 years old now, and I can't believe that the rest of the cast, Sam Carter is now like 50 odd.
Still looking good.
It's weird for me because I guess it's true they've kind of been immortalised almost in. They've been captured in film, so they in my mind are forever young. And when I watched a Comic Con of them recently, it blew my mind to see how different they were. You know how different Richard Dean Anderson is now at 70. It's crazy to just think how old the show is and how much time has passed since I first watched it.
Well, that's what you're saying. You were saying how long ago it was. I was probably about you. Remember, I'm in my 50s now. I'm a 55.
You had hair when it was when it was on.
Yeah, hair. But yes, it's just such a long time ago. It's amazing.
So just out of curiosity, have you actually started the stream? Because it still says it's waiting for you.
It says at my side it's live.
Really? No, because I'm on your channel and it's like, unless I'm on the wrong bit, maybe. Unless I'm on the wrong bit. Oh, did you start a separate thing?
It may have been, because remember I had issues with the first one.
Right, okay, you know what? I'm going to click on that. Oh, there we go. That's it.
Aye. And that's probably what it was. It was because of the way I was using Chrome, and Chrome seems to have a bit of an issue of the connection. It looks like it's connecting, and then what it's doing is it's not connecting properly. It's just constantly saying I'm looking, which then it tells you it's broadcasting, but still saying it's searching for the app.
You know what it was is that when I came out, I went to your main page, and then there was a link there saying live streaming now. And I clicked on that, and it took me to it. But I think you had an event set, and I clicked on that, and that's currently setting says waiting.
That's what it'll be.
That's what it's. We'll figure that out. That's good.
Yes, that's what we're here for. This is one of the first ones where we can actually go into it. You look at you were talking about the age of Stargate.
Yeah, sure.
You remember, was it 94 was the movie?
1994, yeah. God,
94 was the movie. So you're talking about, that's what, 26 years ago. 26 years ago, I was 29.
I was 7.
See what I mean? So I was 29, so literally when the season started, I was 33.
That's crazy to think, isn't it? I mean, it just blows my mind when you see that, because I don't know, it's just, I guess it's just the difficulty of processing that in the brain, seeing them on screen, watching it, and then seeing them today. Because when you watch it on screen, I don't know, I think the brain just goes, oh, it feels like now. But then you see them today, and it's a reminder. It's like, no, it's obviously not now.
Oh, definitely. It's amazing how things stay the same but change.
Mm-hmm.
because you think about it, so they went for 10 years, plus they obviously did the couple of the movies, then they appeared in other odds and ends. You look at Amanda Tapp in Sanctuary.
Yeah, she started. That was the other thing I didn't know about her, was that she started directing as well. So she's like started producing and directing as well. So I kind of saw that, and it made me want to actually go and just sort of find out a little bit more about what she's actually doing. So
well, Sanctuary was definitely one of the best things that had been on after Stargate, because that was quite a good. It was almost a mix of Warehouse 13 come Stargate come. I wouldn't even say things like Twilight, but it was a case of it was like fantasy, more fantasy.
All right, okay.
Aspects of it.
I must say I've not seen any of that. So
you definitely watch that. That's really good.
Is it a sci-fi show?
It's a fantasy, more fantasy. It's
I mean, like the channel, was it a sci-fi? Because like Stargate was MGN, and was it sci-fi that sort of paid for that?
I can't remember, truthfully. It could have been.
I'm going to show my ignorance. Is sci-fi even still going? That's a good question.
Syfy. SYFY. The Syfy channel.
Syfy, yeah, that's what I mean, yeah, the Syfy, yeah.
I think it's still around. But then again, I've not watched anything on terrestrial for a long time. I watch everything, I stream everything.
Yeah.
So I do. Or else I get it in physical media. I like my physical media, so I do. I like my DVD collections.
But you know what I saw yesterday? I was quite tempted to get. I saw the complete collection of Voyager on DVD in a charity shop, £3 per season.
Oh, very good. I would have got that.
I was tempted. I might go and get it, actually. It'll probably still be there. But I was tempted to get it, but then I realised that's one thing I can actually stream on Netflix.
Aye.
So it's on Netflix. So that to me was like.
Aye, but how long is it on Netflix until they actually sign a contract with somebody else and CBS passes it?
That's true, actually. Yeah, maybe I might go and treat myself to that on Monday if it's still there. No, I thought it was quite cool. £3 a season, can't go wrong.
Oh, definitely can't go wrong for that, because I've only got one season of Next Generation, and I like the reason I've not got more, because I could have got more, but I like the case it was in. It was It was a silver case with the Star Trek logo, or the Starfleet logo.
Was that the one with it had that kind of maroon, like same colour as the uniform on it? It was embossed with that sort of colour, because I think my brother has that same case.
It might have been that one. I can't remember. I think it's actually. No, it might be blue. Give me 2 secs. It's right here. Is it there? So when it's blue, you see it?
Your stream's about 30 seconds behind. So
Aye, but you should see it.
I'll see it in about 30 seconds.
You don't see it in Zoom?
Oh no, because your camera's not on Zoom.
Actually.
Yeah, no, your camera doesn't. Your camera's not on Zoom. So that's on the stream. You've just stood up to go and get the box. Oh, I can see. Yeah, that's the one brother's got. Yeah, so I'm seeing it now, but that's the one my brother has.
Right, what I'll do is I'll shove my secondary camera on and see if Zoom picks that up.
Anyway, I think we're here to talk about Stargate, weren't we?
Yes, Stargate SG1. So you've obviously caught up on.
Yeah. Season 1 was, in a nutshell, brilliant. I was under. So a couple of things you mentioned in the stream last week was the thought that Daniel Jackson was played by James Spader, or vice versa, that the actual Daniel Jackson in the film was played by the same guy, and for the longest time that had been a misconception of mine. Like I remember having a discussion with my brother at one point about that, and I swore blind. I'm sure it's the same guy from the movie. And he's like, no, it's James Spader. I'm like, yeah. And it's like, as you say, he played him the same way. It wasn't until later on that he changed the hairstyle.
It was later on in this season, or definitely in season 2, he changed the style. I just moved my camera forward, so you suddenly see me going, ooh.
Oh yeah, there you go. On time. What else? I also forgot, or you know what it was? I think I said to you before we chatted the first time about it, was that I seem to recall like it being very clip showy, like it just filled with like. And you're right. Season 1 is not a clip show
only
at
had
all.
that one bit, and that was when the
senator,
the president, the senator. I can't even remember his name. Yeah, he's actually really good. Kenzie.
Kenzie, yeah, he's a really good actor because he was the same guy that best episode in Star Trek: Next Generation. Actually, do you remember what one that is?
That was the one with it wasn't the one he fought. The guy fought Riker with the bugs.
No. It's a two-parter. It's
was it
one of the best.
The one about Data?
No, he takes over the Enterprise.
So he does. He basically and he tries to change everything.
No, do you remember? So I'll tell you that. Well, I'll give you the plot, and if you can remember the name of the episode, that's bonus points.
No chance for the names of the episode. I'm more likely to get the plot.
All right, I'll tell you the name of the episode then. Chain of Command. Oh, crikey, as I say that, I'm going to just double check myself. So
Chain of Command, that's the one with the lights.
Yes.
And,
actually, yeah, you should remember that from the quiz I've done.
Yes, I did. As soon as you said Chain of Command, I remembered it. But that's the one they go in to look for him, so he gets command of the Enterprise, and he changes the rotation and stuff like that of the command structure, and he moves people around.
He basically comes in and imposes his way of doing things, because so in that episode Picard is captured on a secret mission.
Yeah.
He's disavowed by Star Trek, and then this guy same actor, I forget his name, he comes in and takes over. And then they end up sort of rescuing Picard in a really sort of fancy maneuver at the end of it all. But great episode. That's actually one of the best rated episodes in Star Trek. I don't mean that subjectively. I mean, I think in terms of viewer ratings and all that kind of stuff, it's one of the better ones. Or 2 parts, if you like.
Well, I think anything with Q in it is probably better, only because it's funnier. Yeah,
you know what the good thing about Q is they actually brought him back into Voyager.
Yes,
I don't think he was ever in Deep Space Nine.
Eh?
I don't think he was ever in Deep Space Nine.
I can't remember ever being in Deep Space Nine, I must admit. But I know he's definitely been in Voyager. He's played a few because he kept saying he could get them back and stuff like that. But always never did, and he was.
There was a funny episode where he tries to get Captain Janeway to be his wife.
Aye, and I think it's just Q's a funny character. What's his name?
John LeCleese, isn't it? No, not John.
John Le something.
Yeah, John. I thought it was John LeCleese, but I could be wrong on that. But I remember he came to Glasgow Comic Con that time we went. The time before I slashed my finger open. When we went to his D&D characters, and I actually got to see him. That was cool.
Aye. Really cool. I remember that one where you stuck your finger open. That was the one we all went as D&D characters.
Yeah.
The first one we went as D&D characters. No, there's the one where you cut your finger.
No, the one where I cut my finger was the last year. Last year. It was the year before that.
I couldn't wear my costume because of the parking restrictions.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You wouldn't be able to walk all that way in your armour.
With a big axe.
No,
Glasgow.
Yeah. I don't know, I'm sure they've seen crazier.
Probably.
Anyway, I managed to distract us again, that's my fault.
Yeah. No, but Stargate, Season 2, we start off with our conclusion of the 2-parter. It was the end of Season 1 was the ship appearing at Earth.
That's right, yes. So the Goa'uld, two motherships come into orbit.
Yep.
And SG1 is obviously, they've managed to get themselves on board.
Yep.
And when they're there, they find that basically Skarra is there, and obviously, is it Ra?
It's Apophis.
Apophis is dead. Is it not Ra? You're right.
It's his son. It's basically his son who is Skarra, who is Corel. But Apophis, played by Peter Williams. So Apophis, they keep on saying they're killing him off, but he's always appears. But he doesn't appear as long in certain episodes. That one he did appear in it, but backwards and forwards. Because the other ones you had who appeared in it were Braytak.
That was really good.
and let's see who else.
Because, you got Breakout, Skarra, Apophis. That's kind of, you've got that lieutenant guy. The really dweeby one. He's the one that thinks that we can nuke the two motherships with. Samuels, yeah.
Samuels,
the antagonist.
The antagonist. He was there to be this thing. Did you notice they introduced a new technician who had a major speaking part throughout the season?
Is that the engineer guy?
The woman.
The gate
Lara Siddiq. She in the previous ones it was Walter, the guy with the glasses. He was the one that always had the speaking part as a technician, or else you had Sergeant Siler, who was the technician who would do all the electronics. This one they introduced a new technician, and it was the woman. She was only ever referred to as technician or whatever. She was never really given a name, as far as I remember.
I do remember noticing that when I was watching the season, because it seemed it sort of, not jarred isn't the right word, but stood out to me that it wasn't it wasn't the guy that you usually see doing the gate address. Because I think he must have done that for like all 10 seasons or something. So it seemed very weird that they had someone else come in for that, but didn't develop her.
And he was
later on.
Walter. That's his name. Walter something, or I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But Sergeant Walter.
Google search.
I would, but if I mess around with my screen, then your picture disappears and all that because of that.
That's fine. That's so Norman Walter Davis Harriman. Chief Master Sergeant, Home World Command.
Yeah.
Gary Jones.
IMDb it because you had Sergeant Siler, who was the guy that did the stunt double for Richard Dean Anderson in the early ones.
Gary Jones is his name.
Gary Jones. He played Walter Harriman.
Yes. Guess where he was born?
Where?
Swansea, in Wales. In Wales. And he managed to get himself into SG1. That's pretty good, eh?
That's definitely. Considering it was a Canadian film show. It's filmed in Canada.
Oh, that also reminds me. So, talking about season 2, one of my preferred episodes. We'll get onto it, but episode 4, the Gatekeeper or the Gamekeeper. I think
come on, Dwight Schwartz, come on.
Yeah,
it was a funny first one. I must admit, it was humorous in certain respects. But it was harrowing in others. Oh yeah, don't get me wrong, very harrowing actually. If you think about what was actually going on, what he was doing to them and that. So let me preface that. We'll get on to episode 4, but what I'll say is before we start on that is, so the reason I like Dwight so much is because I grew up on the 18. When I was even younger than that. Howling Mad Murdoch. He was just so good at that. Oh, he was brilliant. And the thing is, so my brother had recorded all the 18 episodes on VHS, right? And so I spent a lot of my childhood watching the reruns on VHS. And so to see him come in, anytime I saw him in anything, it was always just like that. That to me just totally biased the episode towards this is a great episode. Well, even if the script didn't make sense, it was basically good as the wee bumbling Bartley. Yes, again, I enjoyed him. Enjoyed seeing him there as well. So. Even those episodes are some of the episodes I would rate, or they stick out in my mind. Well, I was it's purely subjectively. Mind you, I was the same with Battlestar Galactica, the original, because it had Faceman, exactly. Yeah. Starbuck. Yeah. It's basically it was the same idea when you watch Rocky against B.A. Baracus. Come on. Yeah, no, you're rooting for BA, really, aren't you? Exactly. he was the one of the heroes you grew up with. Yeah. Part of the A-Team. So you had B.A. Baracus, you had Colonel Smith, played by Peppard, George Peppard. Then you had Dwight Schwartz playing Howling Mad Murdoch, and I can't remember the name of the guy who played Face.
I've looked this up once before.
It is literally gone. I know as soon as I hear it, even first part of his name maybe, but it's one of those ones. I see his face. He was in one of my favourite programmes growing up, the A-Team. He was in one of my favourite sci-fi, Battlestar Galactica, the classic one.
Well, his name was Templeton Peck.
Peck.
But his real name was Dirk Benedict.
Dirk Benedict, because he played Faceman, Templeton Peck, but Dirk Benedict, that's what it was, because I remember it from Battlestar Galactica, because that was one of the ones, apart from certain aspects of season 2, but did you watch the original Battlestar Galactica?
I watched a few episodes, and that was one I must admit I never got into it.
On that note, if you ever do get a chance to watch it, watch the one where Starbuck leaves. That is one of the best bits of TV of the time. Superb. It's him and a Cylon.
Alright, okay.
And it is one of the best bits of TV of all time. I loved that even when I was younger, and I didn't quite understand about the hard take with it, but it was just wonderful.
All I say is about Dirk Benedict is time has not been friendly to him. Time has not been kind. Just looking at recent pictures of him.
Aye. But the thing is,
catches up with everyone.
Aye, time gets on. But let's go back to season 2,
episode
1, The Serpent Slayer.
Episode 1. They are they're on the ship.
They're on the ship. They've planted the bombs on the ship, thinking they've got weeks or days or months.
Yeah.
And turns out they've got less than a day. And now spoilers, by the way, people, for this season. If you've not seen it, you've not seen it after nearly 30 years.
yeah, I was going to say, if you've not seen it yet, I think you've missed your chance. It'll be coming up for, if it was filmed in 20 odd years, that's right.
20 odd years, sorry, aye. It'll be coming up for the 25th anniversary.
Yeah.
Of the... aye.
So, anyway, so they're on the ship, and there's Planet C4. Now, just remind me, they get captured, is that right? No, or they go looking for Skarra.
They go looking for Skarra, but they get captured.
That's right, and then Skarra sort of overcomes his ghoul to sort of, I guess, not kill them straight away.
No. Because initially he was trying to kill Daniel, the end of the last season, and Jack had to shoot him, and that's when they overcame the ghoul. But they put him in the sarcophagus, and they came back up. And they seem to play with that aspect of it, that the host can take over, can influence the Gould, but in other aspects later on, they sort of said yes, the host doesn't disappear, but it's got very little influence over it.
I guess it's just one of those things where, like, if you're wanting to argue it from like a practical point of view, or like if you're imagining it's true sort of thing. I could see, like, when like your loved one's right in front of you, then you're going to be very emotional, and that's the argument could then be made. That's when they've got the most amount of control, is when they're really emotional and that sort of thing. But obviously, you take that away, and then normally the symbiont is just going to, like, push them aside, put them down, whatever, and then.
But there's aspects of that as well, because you look at Teal'c in season 1. He was a trained soldier. I'm assuming he was a trained, same idea as Jack, because of the Gatekeeper episode. He was basically trained to undergo
psychological warfare.
So, and the only reason he managed to fight it was because it was a juvenile Gould, and it could only take control of him at certain points. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were a wee bit flat, fast and loose, but there's always silly things. Like, you look at this episode, right? The one thing I always noticed for a big ship, it always say about the amount of soldiers and the amount of Jaffa on the thing, and how you see them. There's never any there, unless they need somebody to do something. Then they're there.
See, yeah, that's. I mean, I guess that in some ways is like it's almost like the catch-22 of the show. You want to have this show that's all about like the elite military. You know, like, there is no more secret organization than Stargate. It would have you believe. If that's the case, why don't you just take tanks through the Stargate? Like, why not just have an APC go through the Stargate? Like, an armored personnel carrier would just completely mitigate so many of their problems in terms of being overpowered, being shot at, whatever, you name it. And it's the same with like the number of people on the ship. Like anytime you see Apophis walking around, he only seems to have like 3 or 4 guards.
Yeah.
And you think for somebody who might be is literally to be a god. And if you compare that to like what we know about history in Egypt, like these people would have literally been carried around in boxes by teams of people, having more teams of people with more teams of people just to wait on the every whim.
Exactly. Well, you look at the movie. Have you seen the movie?
Which movie? Oh yeah, the
movie.
Stargate movie. Yeah.
Right, you see him sitting there, right? I think there was only 4 Horus guards, right? And you look at all his attendants, which was weird because they were all kids. And that aspect was the thing is that he always had people around him. The kids would stand in front of him to protect him and all that, so they couldn't shoot him. But he always had attendance. Whereas, as you said, in this one now, they have enough guards to keep wearing the mask and getting shot, but
yeah, no, I know. I mean, I guess that's the problem with budget versus
I think
isn't
they
it,
could have got around that if they didn't actually mention things like there's always guards here and other ones, or that there's a lot of Jaffa in this. We need to keep quiet when they walk down big vast corridors, and then suddenly 10 of them pass and just continue on.
Yeah, you're right. You could have done wee bits like that just to give it a bit more of a background. I mean, you could have even said something like had just a door open to a canteen and just have do one of the CG images where it just looks like a bunch of how you do with stormtroopers where it's just like rows upon rows upon rows. Just do that, just like CG in a few hundred rows of troopers in the background and maybe even have them on the. I mean, you're talking about like a type of culture where these are all like the plebby soldiers. So maybe they're all in the lower levels and there's only one access, and in the first 5 minutes of the episode they destroy that. So there's no way for the plebs to get up to the royalty class, and then that's why there's only like 5 or 6 guards kicking them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But minor details like that aside, good episode I think overall.
Oh, cool definitely. It's definitely one of the ones where the way they get round to get both ships.
I wish they'd done, because I mean I don't know, it's maybe more of a, I don't know what the word is, but a trope. But I think maybe just a quick scene or a wee tip that sort of hinted at Apophis escaping would have been a good idea, because obviously he escapes. Spoilers, as you learn later on in later seasons. So I think it would have been nice just to have like a little bit of a.
But they mentioned it.
Did they mention it?
Aye, because they mentioned.
They
didn't mention it in that episode.
No, not in that episode, but they mentioned it later on. That's what I mean.
I think later on how he must have used the Stargate straight after I did.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. It would be nice. I think what I'm getting at is it would be good to build that in, like really, like into that episode, because that would have been a nice throwback to that episode at that point. That's something I like, and it's one thing I don't think Stargate ever did really well, or did enough, because one of the things that obviously a show like this tries to do is they try to give you a sense of like character
continuity.
What's the word? Like to give you a sense of character building
Yes.
To make it feel like the characters have real relationships. What they'll do is they'll often do things like, oh, do you remember that time in
Aye,
do you remember that time
they'll
in
try to
Vietnam?
build up a continuity behind the character. So
Yeah,
if they mention
precisely.
something, it's something that's happened before as well.
Exactly, and that's what they do occasionally. But when I'm thinking about Stargate, it's like you've got so many episodes already written. You've already got that experience.
Uh-huh.
So why not make the throwback to something that has happened in the show already?
They do that.
And that they do it a couple of times, but they don't do it as often as they could.
Oh, of course.
They could do it more, and I always just think when they do that sort of thing, when they make a throwback to something they've not shown you, I always find it's a cheap and lazy way of trying to build a character. Whereas if you just make a throwback to something the audience has already seen in theory, then it's like, oh yeah, I've seen that, and that's cool because they're actually throwing back to something that happened like several episodes ago, and because I've seen that, I know that, and that's something I always felt Stargate was maybe just a little bit guilty of. I mean, other shows are obviously all shows do that. But,
Aye, but then again, it's I suppose when it comes down to it, as you said, that's nice for people who have watched it, whereas people who dip in and out, those references don't really mean anything.
No, absolutely, and I think from that point of view, I can almost understand why they've probably done that then, because it's like if you're trying to engage a new audience, which I mean, effectively, I think Stargate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Stargate to start with wasn't actually that well received. I don't think
the first season wasn't as well liked because it's the same idea with a lot of season ones. Because they're trying to set their level.
They're still trying to find themselves as well.
And they reckoned if it had already had season 1 and 2 paid for, it might have not succeeded by season 1.
So yeah, I mean, from that point of view, I can understand why you want to introduce hooks for the audience to make them feel like these characters have a history and because if you make it a reference to like one of the original episodes, that excludes people who haven't seen it.
Right.
Not literally like, sorry, you can't watch this. But it's a joke that then people go, I don't get that. Whereas if you give them a generic, oh, do you remember that time in Budapest? And it's like, oh, I know Budapest. I know that place exists. So everyone then feels included. That's maybe just like reaching on my behalf. Anyway.
But no, the way they actually managed to get the roll up of that season or that episode, because you knew fine well Samuel's missiles were going to fail miserably. Yeah. Just the way it was built up and stuff like that, you knew, oh dear.
I kind of hoped they would let them hit the ship and just be like, I almost thought it was going to be like that. Kind of that moment from Iron Man 3, I think it is, when Iron Patriot comes down, War Machine, and he fires the hammer tech missile and it just goes bing. So it's this big build up to like, oh, it's going to be massive, and it fires out and just bounces off the guy and does nothing. I thought that would be even funnier if these two missiles hit the side of the ship and just literally bounced and spun off into space and didn't do anything.
Aye, no contact. Whereas it hit, they just hit the shield and just went boom, boom.
Yeah. How much did that cost? 50 million.
Bummer, I know. But I think because that's another trope as well of the bad guy comes in dead smarmy. You know fine well, based on the type of program it is, he's not really going to succeed. He's going to fail. He's going to go, and it was how he fails, because I'm so pompous, I'm so arrogant, and I'm going to so get it done. Oh dear.
I can't fail. So I like the way that episode ends. You've got so I like the way the episode ends. You've got Carter and O'Neill, Teal'c and Master Braytak floating in space, and I think that's it. I think they're going to die basically. But then obviously I think it's the Challenger
shuttle.
Challenger shuttle comes and picks them up, And then that's the end of episode 1. And well, not quite, because Daniel Jackson's kind of found to be in the background.
He's disappeared. He's no there.
But see, when they reunite him in the base,
Uh-huh.
do you not think that?
It was
Why
almost...
why would you not tell why would you not tell them that your friend is alive as soon as they get down there? If it's like, hey, by the way, Daniel Jackson, he's made it. Why not tell them that rather than? Presumably, it must have taken several hours for them to get from wherever they landed the shuttle back to Shanks.
Well, apart from anything else, it will take them several hours from landing to getting there. But what about the hours they were in space? The hours they were actually coming down from space?
I mean, you're right. I mean, you've probably been talking days. In reality, I guess, to go from being in space down to wherever and all that.
Because I'm sure they would have had reports to hand in during that time.
But so, I mean, if you think about the logic of that, someone consciously made the choice not to tell them so that they could surprise them when they get back into the gate room. Why in the gate room? That's just bizarre.
Just so they go, ta-da!
Yeah, surely you meet like in the meeting room or something. But I guess it's the season premiere, so they've got to be in the gate room and make it all look cool and stuff. They do a lot of informal meetings in the gate room that I've noticed in Stargate. It's very strange.
It is the things they talk about and stuff like that. It's just the weird things they come up with.
But then that sort of neatly takes us on to episode 2.
Unless there's anything else you want to say.
Yeah, Line of Duty, unless there's anything else you want to say about episode 1.
No. The only thing about episode 1 is I liked the fact is Apophis is back, Teal'c's back, Skarra Corel is back. It's the fact that you're seeing ones from the first episode and the movie. Because the one that plays Skarra, remember, was the same guy in the movie. Alex, Alex something or other.
Was it Alex? I can't remember the names. I'll guess the name. Alex Simmons?
No. It was... Where is it? Oh my goodness.
You want me to look it up?
Yeah, because I've only got things like Kasuf.
Right, you right. Okay, so you chat through episode 2, and I'll tell us who played Skarra.
Right, episode 2, The Line of Duty. That was the one where Sam Carter is infested or becomes the host of a Goa'uld. Well, she's trying to save the life of a villager.
I'll have you know they take offence at being referred to as
but as far as you know from day dot, the very first thing is she's a Goa'uld.
And it's Alexis Cruz.
Alexis Cruz. Because he played Scar throughout. He played him in the movie as well as on the TV show. It's the same as the guy who played his father, Kasuf. He was the same guy in the movie and the TV show. And that was Eric Avari.
Right.
Those two were the ones who were in the original movie and in the TV show as the same characters, same actors playing the same characters in movie and TV show, and they played it throughout. Right, obviously not up to season 10 because they finished. They finished about season 6 or 7 with the Goa'uld, and they went on to the Ori 8, 9 and 10, or 8, 9 and 10.
Replicas and Ori, or was it Replicas then Ori? Together, I think it was, yeah.
But then, so you're still talking about a good 6 seasons. It's the same character would come back as bit parts, playing the exact same character from a '94 movie.
Yeah, no,
do you know the only other one I know who did that? Played the same character in a movie and a TV show based on the movie.
Let me guess. Let me guess.
They're the only 2 in Stargate, but what other character became very well known for playing the TV character and the TV show character?
You mean the movie and then the TV show character?
Yes.
Can you give me a hint? Is it sci-fi?
No, comedy.
Comedy.
Let's say war.
Oh, war. I'm going to say it was wasn't MASH, was it?
Gary Burghoff played Radar O'Reilly in the movie and the TV show. You are right, MASH.
Oh, MASH, yeah. Okay, you told me that before.
Corporal Walter Radar O'Reilly, played by Gary Burghoff. He played the same part in both movies, the movie and the TV show.
Okay. That's
Not
cool.
one other character came across. And there's a lot of movies, you think about it, going to a TV show, very, very rarely a character will come with it.
Do you want? Well, actually, technically, if you want to be
pedantic.
I suppose it depends. How pedantic do you want to be about it? But like technically, the whole cast of Dad's Army, because they had their own movie.
Like they had the movie based on the TV show. They didn't have the TV show.
Oh, you mean the other way? All right, so from a movie to a TV show. I see,
from a movie to TV show, because they usually make a TV show based on a movie. But
Agent
sometimes
Carter.
there's a TV show going on and they'll make a movie about it and it's the same cast.
Agent Carter. Agent Carter and technically, I mean, if again that technically is, so Agent Carter was in the the Winter Soldier. Have you seen that? Do you remember that? So that's the woman that sort of.
I know she was the one with
Captain America's love interest.
America, Agent Carter. I only watched one or two episodes. I wasn't really keen on it, but I know exactly who you're talking about. So she's the same character in the movie who was in the
same actress, and also
same actress in the movie went on to the TV show.
Yeah, absolutely, and in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, the same actor.
Coulson.
Yes, Coulson. Yeah, the same actor is the same actor as in the Netflix series Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So it's the same guy.
Coulson, I know that one because I watched a couple episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But then again, I think they ruined Coulson with the honest they didn't die. Whereas I thought he was a good character, and if they killed him off for a point, and then they're coming back with the TV show, they says, "Well, we didn't. We just said that to Captain." I thought, really?
I don't like it when they do that, because that's what they did with in Star Wars with C-3PO. It's like, oh, I'm just taking one last look at my friends before they basically wipe my memory and kill me. Five minutes later, deep back.
Control.
That's the thing. It's like delete and then he's back. And it's like, oh, so you didn't actually kill him. You've just re-uploaded his memories and he's back to normal. It's like, well,
they do that all the time. It's Disney. What do you expect?
It was just so dull. It's just so.
Well, you look at it. They killed off Kylo Ren, brought him back. Killed off Rey, brought him back, because they introduced something that could bring it back. So in effect, there's no consequences.
Yeah, no, that's why.
You need to have the consequences. Daniel Jackson did it later on. But
yeah,
they
spoiled it for me.
They took the piss out of that. So they did, but we'll talk about that far
later
down the line.
So so Carter gets infected. Infested, not infected.
Infested.
Comes
and
back.
Becomes a host.
Yes, comes back, becomes a host, and it's quite. To be honest, I think the episode itself is kind of a bit meh until the end, and it's where you see the effect that having been. You see the effect on Carter, because Carter is this obviously super intelligent woman, really brave, strong, the whole thing, and yet at the end of it, you think, okay, there's been the physical side effect of it, but then she's just distraught, she's completely distraught, and it literally takes the little girl to come back and be like Cassandra to come back and sort of shake her out of her melancholy, I guess.
Yeah.
So that I think that just shows you the impact that it's had on her.
And do you know
that go ahead.
Do you know what this episode brings highlights as well? Another failure with one of the pieces of technology they use. Can you think what it is? The inconsistency.
Metal detectors.
The inconsistency of their technology.
Are you talking about the Ghoul technology or the Stargate technology or the
Ghoul technology? Let's say Ghoul technology.
So the only Ghoul technology I can think of is the wee hand thing.
Is that Nikita?
Oh, is that Nicotel?
You look how inconsistent it is.
Go explain more. I can't remember this bit.
Right, you look at the first episode, right?
Yeah.
Occasionally they would shoot a Jafar. Just once. He would collapse, that's him out.
Oh, right, yes. So sometimes it knocks him out.
And then they'll go, and they'll sort of wake back up, because he did it with Daniel, remember?
That's right.
They zatted him, and he basically just was down, shaking, and then he got back up, and you're sitting there thinking...
But that's because he was, like, basically high... is this PG-13, by the way? He was very, very high as a kite, shall we say. So in that case, I think he's...
that's the next episode, Prisoners, but that's a different one, but in this one...
Oh, you're not talking about that?
They use the Zat Nicotel as well, and it doesn't knock them out.
Yeah, again, I suppose that's just contrivance.
Because they use the Zat Nicotel for a few times like that throughout the first 3 or 4 or 5 episodes. You see, it's 1 minute when they're attacking the Jafar, they actually knock the Jafar out when they zat him.
You actually know it. So I must admit, anytime I've seen that, it's actually been pretty consistent. I think maybe you've probably maybe seen 1 or 2 bits where it's maybe been that inconsistent. But when I've watched it, it's actually been pretty consistent in that if they get shot, they sort of do the wee dance and then fall down, and then they always make a point of showing them getting shot the second time to kill them.
Yes.
There was one
to wipe them.
And a third time to wipe them. But there was one, actually, in episode, I know we're not talking about it, but in episode 12, is it 12? Yeah, in episode 12, there's a scene where they get shot once, fall over, and get shot twice, and then instantly evaporate. Unless I've missed that, but it didn't ruin the episode for me, put it that way. But it was just, I think I clocked it at the time, thinking, oh, that's weird. I wonder if that was just an editing omission or something.
Well, there's Zat Nicotel, because a lot of the time they show them Zat once and they go down. Yeah, you look at the next one, the Prisoners. He's high, he gets zatted, and he goes down and he's shaking. But then families with Ryak, he gets zatted and he's lying in his bed like that.
Oh, that episode. I can't wait. I want to talk about that one soon, because that was so. I don't want to swear, but that was so weird. Why on earth would they electrocute him?
It was so swear-worthy.
It was so swear-worthy. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you electrocuting this small child? He's been brainwashed. That's not going to help him.
Yeah, electroshock therapy. That'll work.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, okay, so I have a degree in psychology, right? So I have read a little bit, I mean, like a really tiny amount about electroshock therapy. And I understand the principle. It's almost like you're sort of wiping short-term memory to make them forget, and then you can get in that period before they remember it. But like, I thought, how did I mean, imagine that. Imagine you're there, right? You've got your kid in front of you who's been brainwashed. Some guy rocks up with a taser. He's like, you know what? I think this is going to help. I was just embarrassed. I couldn't help it. I thought, this is madness. I was in bits
at that. I suppose that's just another one that shows the Zat Nicotel is just is inconsistent, because in this one they do it and it basically goes down, then he's back up.
Yeah, he sort of does a wee, and he's like, "Oh, hi, Dad, I'm back again."
Aye, and then that one as well, and the one with Daniel as well.
Yeah, that was another great episode. That I thought the High. What's his name? What's his actual name? It's not Christian something. The guy who plays Daniel.
Or the
what's the actor's name?
I know it. I've got it right here. Hold on.
It annoys me because he was in Eureka as well, and I quite liked him in Eureka. Like for one episode cameo.
Oh, what's his name? James. It's not James Spader. It's
That was my mistake.
I've got it actually. If you look at the context of it's actually in the description below the video. It'll tell you.
I've got him here. Michael Shanks. How can I forget that? Michael Shanks.
Aye, because I put it in the description of the video.
Yeah, but Michael Shanks, like he plays a really good, like, heroin addict.
Oh, aye.
Like he nailed it. Like that, I think he was playing on some personal experience on that one.
But do you know what I thought of that episode as well? Which we'll get to in a wee bit.
Oh, we'll get to that in a second as well.
Aye,
like,
that's the next one.
Shall we pause on that? Shall we go back to what we're meant to be doing, and then we'll come forward?
We'll go back to episode 2, because that is basically it's notable because it introduces the Tok'ra.
Yeah, that's and I think that if I had to sum up the season, it's Tok'ra and Asgard. So season 2 is it's finding the Tok'ra.
It's finding the Tok'ra, and it's the second mention of the Asgard, because they do go back to the Asgard.
I quite like. Yeah, no, that's quite a good one, actually. So in episode 2, sum it up, basically, we find out about the Tok'ra, and that's kind of setting the hook for later on in the season.
And it shows you a difference between the two, because as the Tok'ra said, Jolinar of Jolinar. Anyway, we'll say Jolinar. It's Jolinar of Mokchoi or something like that. It was, but Jolinar, as he said, was, we don't use a sarcophagus because it changes them. It changes us.
Yeah.
Which is because it's based on the fact that he mentioned putting them in the sarcophagus for the healing and they said no because it changes us.
But so that takes us. Yeah, it's episode 3, Prisoners.
Episode 3, Prisoners.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that's when Daniel starts to.
Yeah. That's basically the. No. That's episode 3 was right. Prisoners, which was they get accidentally in prison because they think they're helping someone who's been charged with murder. And it's they meet the woman, the female prisoner.
One thing that stood out for me in that episode that I thought it's such a minor thing. Like I seriously doubt anyone else would have ever even clocked it. It's not even really that interesting. But right at the end when they leave, they open the gate and they basically vaporize like the feeding chute and the trough for the place. So how are the rest of those guys ever going to eat anything again? They're literally stuffed. They've just condemned all those people to starve to death. Uh-huh. I mean, I'm sure they'll fashion another something at some point. But I just remember watching that thing. They've just really screwed everyone over there.
Aye.
And then they're
like,
I'm
standing there as soon as it opens with their bowls, hoping to catch something coming through.
Absolutely.
I just found it weird.
Go ahead.
I just found it weird. Just the aspect of it is the gang leader, the alpha male in it, showed how scared he was of her. But there was no rhyme or reason given for why.
Well, she had the thing that killed him. So my guess would be that probably when she's first entered into the prison, they will all have known who she was, right? So she would be the woman that's like wiped out the planet. So she's come in. Well, that's actually a question. How did she get the wee device? Okay, so that's a wee plot hole there. So all the technology gets taken away, she gets put in there, and she still has her wee palmy thing.
I'm not going to go where could she have hidden it.
Oh, well, I was going to say the horse partially, but anyway, so she gets that in there. Maybe there's a fight scene where it's like, or maybe there's a fight where it's like she has to prove herself and she just like kills like the strongest guy without even touching him. It's just like, you're dead, head explodes, all that kind of stuff. That's going to buy you fear. Yes. And then on top of that, she obviously knows her, like she's got all the cures and ailments and things like that. So she's able to cure people. So that in itself is going to buy you a bit.
That would buy her the respect that people think, but it was not so much respect. That's what I'm saying. It just looked fear.
But that's what I mean. Like, say first day you rock into the prison, you're like this little old woman. You have a thing and you just do that, and like some guy drops dead. Like the strongest guy in there just dies. Like his eyes melt or whatever out his head. You insert whatever imagination you want. Uh-huh. That from people that have never seen that before, they're just gonna be like, what?
I can understand that aspect in hindsight, but just they didn't seem to lay that premise.
No, I agree with you on that. They didn't provide that, but
I can understand.
That is what I thought.
I must admit, that's probably out of the first half of the season. That was the one I thought was yeah. You know what I mean? It was. Okay. I didn't think it was bad, but I didn't think it was enough that I could watch it a second time or a third time. Obviously, I've watched it a couple of times, but it's not like one. Every so often, I'll dig out my Stargate and I'll just shove an episode on just for fun.
You know what
it's
though?
One that I wouldn't put on again just for fun.
It's funny you say it. It's funny you say it though, because like as you know, there'll be some episodes that there'll be some episodes that can just you don't really remember, and then when you watch the series again, you're like, oh, I forgot about this episode.
All right.
That is not one of those episodes. That episode has always stuck with me. Maybe it's because it's it's like a fear, you know. It's like it was maybe a very visceral fear for me at the time because I was very young. That this whole idea that that's you. You're almost like you're sent to Australia and that's you. You're stuffed, and then you're just in this place with no rules, and it's just survival of the fittest, literally.
How many brothers and sisters have you got?
One.
Yeah, that's why. I've got one brother and 3 sisters. I was used to having no rules because I was the second youngest.
Well.
So I didn't have that. I didn't have that fear. I lived that every day.
Don't be telling us about the times you got put in those dresses. I mean, that's not suitable for live stream.
Hey, that was only my first 3 years of life. Leave me alone.
You weren't even conscious at that point.
I didn't know, but
aye.
But no, I suppose it is. There's going to be ones that, to me, sort of go, ooh, that is it. And there's going to be, you're sitting there thinking, well, they were actually okay, but it'll be for the same reason. There'll be something that triggers a happy feeling or a feeling.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, for sure. It just with you saying that, it was, I agree. I don't know if it's one I'd sit and watch, but it did stick with me. So, I mean, it must have done something right.
I'll give you an example, right? Season 1. I can name at least 2 that were dire. That to me were the worst 2 of definitely the first couple of seasons. Later on, I can't tell you if anything cropped up. I thought, oh, that's almost as bad.
See, that's interesting though, because I remember, like, I was watching you obviously 2 weeks ago, and I think you said it was one where they're with the Mongol tribe.
Emancipation. And
I watched the episode. I thought, actually, no, it's okay. Like, I didn't think it was. I don't think it set the sky on fire. But at the same time, I didn't think it was bad.
One of the worst type. However, in all fairness, it was a very strong Carter episode. Because
she had to do it. I liked it for that.
But it had one of the best character actors around. Is it Teal'c?
Oh yeah. I mean, I can't remember his name, but yeah.
I think it's something like Teal'c. But I remember growing up in a lot of the programs, he was the Chinese guy or the Asian guy or whatever. But he was always the character actor that played in a lot of these programs. So he stood out to me because he was so good at a lot of the stuff he did. And it's because seeing him, he's obviously older now when he was doing that. It was just such a well-known good character actor, and that was the one thing it stuck out with me, and that was him. You've got such a good actor who, even in his later years, was still such a good actor, and he just reminded me of all the programs that I'd seen with him in it. And it's just one of those ones. It's the same again. I've been watching. It's a 1965 thing. Into the Unknown. Is it Into the Unknown?
Okay.
Right. It basically is a BBC sci-fi. 1965. It starts off with the Earth blown up. It's short. It's basically stories from things like Terry Nation, Isaac Asimov. It's been turned into like an Outer Limits type thing. Right. These are just sci-fi stories. One of them was really funny about robots. I loved that. I'm going to do a review of that. Just watch it again and do a review of it because It was funny, but a lot of the things they did in this thing, right? You're sitting watching it and you're going, hey, that's the guy who played the Chawala in Are You Being Served? Hey, there's the woman who was in, the guy who was in Coronation Street, EastEnders, Arthur Fowler. There's him there, 1965. There's him, he was in UFO. There's him, he was in this sci-fi show. Look, there's him, there's Arthur Daly. George Cole in a later one in 19... because it ran from 65 to 71. So there's George Cole in it. There's the guy who played the guy in Coronation Street in it. There's Hannah Gordon.
Yeah, I've heard Hannah Gordon. I don't know who it is, but I've heard the name.
It's just all these actors I grew up watching.
Yeah.
But this is 1965. This must be 65, 71. This is probably their early start. Like, for instance, the very first episode, did you see this guy sitting in a crowd, and his face jumps out because it was a guy in Ain't Half Hot Mum, the Punkawalla, and he was in the one about the school, the English school. He's been in a lot of different things because he's Pakistani, so he played the Pakistani character or the Indian character. But I remember near enough everything he was in. Because he was a funny guy. Suresh something, or I can't remember off the top of my head. I did remember his name, but it was the fact is, I'm sitting there going, I know him, I know him, I know her, I know her, and it's because it's all the programs you grew up watching. You could just see all these people who were in them, and this must have been where it started. And it was, I liked it for that. So when people pop in to programs that I'm watching, I go, oh, I recognise him. That's what I liked about some of these things. Like, for instance, the Dwight Schultz popping in.
I was going to say exactly that, yeah. Dwight Schultz. But any show he pops into is good in my books.
But that's what I'm saying. It's the same as with these programs where you're talking about that one with the woman who played Laura, or something like that. I recognised her. Don't know where it's from. I know it's been from a movie or something.
I guess it's a small world, though, isn't it? You know, all these people they'll do these little bits in their careers, and you'll just see them sort of popping up all over the place. That's quite a nice thing as well.
It's good because, as you said, with the guy who played Kinsey.
Yeah, you always see him kicking about as well.
I've seen him in other ones, and he's good at being the bad guy.
Right, I want to come back to the episode now because I've just realised there was a point about episode 3, Prisoner, that I wanted to bring up.
Yes.
If I may, because we're rambling again. So here's a question, right? How did a woman that's never seen a computer before manage to overcome this? Yes, know how to program it. I mean, I presume if you've never seen Visual Basic before, you still need at least a couple hours being told what it all is and that. Was she playing dumb? Do you think she was playing dumb?
I think to an extent she was playing dumb, but that's like you going over to China, knowing how to use a computer. Yeah,
use a Chinese keyboard or something like that.
Exactly. And so that's the aspect of it I didn't understand, because yes, she could be from Earth. She could speak English, but doesn't mean she knows their operating system. She doesn't know. I could program in, when I was younger, I could program in DOS. Doesn't mean I could program in Windows. Didn't mean I could program in Mac. Didn't mean I could program in Linux. I could program in COBOL, Turbo Pascal.
And here's the thing, you know, it's like, I hear what you're saying exactly, right? You know, you can't be on a computer in one room and somehow manage to program. I mean, you can't program yourself a connection to other computers in the rest of the base. You can't program yourself something that doesn't exist. So somehow she's able to be on a computer in the medical bay and somehow use BASIC or whatever code they're using there to take over the entire base, causing the blackout, program the whole thing. I'm just like, I just stretched too far. Just pull it back a little bit for me and I could be behind it.
But see, the thing is, I could play devil's advocate there.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know fine well I do administration for IT.
I know.
So I'm no an expert on networks. However, on my machine here, I can get into my server in the office, and from the server in the office, I can get access to the cloud, and from the cloud, I can get access to somebody else's machine. Because
Could
the
you do that in
connections
1997?
it's finding the connections.
Could you do that in 1997?
No, but the thing is, in 1997, I was already online. I was using the first browser, Teal'c.
Fair, yeah, okay,
Teal'c,
I'll give you that.
Right, and from that, I had to get into the network from my machine in the office. Link into the network, from the network onto the main server. If I knew how to connect them, I could get there. If I knew there was a connection there and I knew how to get them. So devil's advocate, yes, just because she's in that, it's probably networked and she's just finding a way around the network. But back to what you said initially is, how did she know?
Yeah, that's a bit that threw me a wee bit. It's like how, you know.
So there's a devil advocate aspect of it there. It can be done. However, you need to know what you're doing.
But I mean, what from a more of a writer point of view, what confused me was that I understand that they maybe wanted to have like a dramatic finish to the episode where it's like they're kind of chasing her down and it's like, oh, down to the wire, is she going to get away? And she gets away, you know, and I get that.
5,
at the same
4,
time,
3, 2, 1, and it's defused on 1. Come on, that was a trope of a trope.
But like, why? I mean, they were going to let her go. You know what I mean? Like, why did she have to? Why do all that to escape? Like, they were, as far as they were concerned, like she was their friend. Yeah, it's like, all right, on you go. Yeah, you want to leave? Stargate's there. Where do you want to go? We'll dial it in for you. How about that? That was it. That was the impression I got. I never got the impression that they were like, "Oh, we're going to capture her and you know."
It was only after that guy recognised her.
Even then, it's like this one guy. It's like, you really. I just. The only sort of what seemed to cement that in their mind was when she did all that. It was only after she escaped. They're like, "Oh, we've let the Destroyer of Worlds go." Whereas if she hadn't done any of that. Imagine she gave Sam like this super awesome new formula. I think it was for the root stuff that made all the power. Imagine she gave that to him and you're like, oh, cheers, thanks very much. Here's this super powerful thing that generates its cold fusion. They'd be like, yeah, that nutcase, whatever he's talking about, no one cares, right? Ship him off to the happy bin wherever he goes.
Exactly.
We've got this super cool technology. Where do you want to go? Right, bye, see you later. And that would have been it. Like, and to me, the reason I think that would have been better if they'd done that is because what they could have done is she could have escaped and then they found out they'd let go the Destroyer of Worlds. Rather than how much worse would you feel? Would you feel bad that the Destroyer of Worlds escaped from you? Or would you feel bad that you let her go? Now I think that would have made far more sense. It wouldn't have had so many sort of reaches. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, it's like it's a sci-fi world, right? So anything's possible, but you want to sort of. I almost feel that the argument against saying that like it's just a sci-fi world, anything's possible, is that you still need some sort of you still need some sort of rules to make sense.
Exactly
Otherwise,
what I was going to say. Look at me, right? You look at my room, Doctor Who. Yeah, I'm quite happy with Daleks. I'm quite happy with the aspects of aliens and stuff like that. However, if a Dalek does something, it's out with the rules they've laid out for within their continuity. That's when I go, nah. So I'm okay with a Dalek exterminating people, stuff like that. But when a Dalek, somebody's inside a Dalek and every time they want to say love, it says exterminate. What's that got to do with speech? Because that takes it out of that aspect of it, because yes, they're using it as a consciousness, and the program in every Dalek, as soon as they say something like love, they want it comes out as exterminate. It made no sense. I mean, that was the Clara Oswald one with the souffle girl.
For the example for me would be like, so let's say, I mean the Dalek. I'm going to take a terrible example here and run with it.
Stairs.
So let's say you're talking about the stairs, exactly. You've got the Daleks. They can't go upstairs. But in some ways, that was a good thing, the way they did that, because they set this foundation, they set these rules, and they played with that, and they kept that. But then they introduced almost. Well, actually, I'm going to contradict. I'm going to roll back on what I just said. They introduced the episode where they could finally go upstairs, but they made it like this big, like, oh my God, they can finally go upstairs.
The Sylvester McCoy one. It's coming up to get him.
Yeah, I remember the episode. It's Sylvester McCoy. You've got Ace, and it's one where they're in the school. And it's like where she uses the RPG to blow it up and stuff. No, it's a great episode.
It's a baseball bat. She beats it up with a baseball bat.
Did she not blow it up? I thought she blew it up with something.
She did. Look.
Yeah, you got a picture of it somewhere, I'm sure. But you know what I mean, like, so that I think in that case you've established the rules, and then you've got. And that's where I felt this episode went a bit too far, because you're basically it just takes away. I hate saying this, but for want of a better word, it takes away the believability of it. And I know I hate saying that because your picture just moved over, so I'm just assuming. Oh yeah, okay. But it takes away the believability of it. And that's a terrible thing to say. I know it's maybe not the right thing to say about Stargate, but because it's being a science fiction show, right? But I feel like if you lose those rules, then it just takes something away from the audience, because then you're less invested, because you think, well, there's no matter what they do, there'll just be something. They'll be like, oh, this happens, and it's like, oh, okay.
Well, I think you're right. They have to continue with the rules they built up for. It's like, for instance, it's one-way traffic through the wormhole.
Precisely. You can't.
So if they suddenly step backwards and you're sitting there thinking, you've already said that can't happen, and you've run with that. So why would it suddenly happen? So that would throw the. This is actually no. It's against the rules. They've not done that in Stargate.
No, they've not. No, they've not gone back.
That's what I'm saying. It's that type of thing. If they suddenly you could travel both ways down a wormhole.
One thing I don't like is that occasionally they sort of dip into it and pull back out. I think that's wrong.
Yes, the bit where they put their hand through it and then they can bring their hand back.
Yeah.
There's other aspects of the gate that I think they're playing too hard and loose with. The event horizon, right? They says the maximum time it can stay open is 39 minutes. 39 minutes, right? So they obviously, how long does it stay active otherwise?
Yeah, no, that's something that annoys me as well. Like, so in fact, in the episode that I just watched, so in episode 12, it's a bit of it's a weird one, because obviously I know episode 12, I'm not talking about that yet, but it's because it's fresh in my mind, it sticks out. But when they're running away from the Tok'ra base, secret base,
and the
gate's open.
The Death Glider's bombing them.
Yeah, exactly. But the gate's open, and then I think O'Neill. So the original team, the Neil, Teal'c, and Daniel, and I forget the name of the other guy, but they go through, and they're waiting for Sam, the dad, and basically the other Tok'ra guy.
I know.
It's just like, well, why is the gate still open? Why has the gate remained open all that time? Because there's nothing coming through it. And I think in some shows they talk about, like, the radio transmissions can keep it open, so if they're talking back and forward and not, cool, fine with that. But why is the gate staying open? And it almost seems to suggest that the command center has some sort of control over.
As in, if they're feeding it power, that's fine, but they can cut off power.
I mean, I guess from a writer point of view, you would obviously you would not define that, because you want it to be loose, right? You want to, as a writer, you want the space to be able to say, oh, it shuts now at the last second to make it interesting, or it's stayed open. Why it's staying open, and then it shuts down. So I think that gives you as a writer more freedom to write stuff. I guess.
But
at the same time,
they need to give the reasons why things happen.
Yeah. I suppose if I was to try and say why that's important, I guess I would say it's important because if you don't do that, it maybe takes the audience out of the moment, because
suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, yeah, it's a suspension of disbelief, and that's maybe the problem, because even if it's just for a second where they go, "Oh, why is it doing that?" Ah, it doesn't matter, whatever, it's sci-fi. That's already that's already too late. Even if because you've had that moment where they're not enjoying the show now. They're thinking, "Why is it doing that?" Ah, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'll just carry on watching. You know what I mean? It's that suspension of disbelief, I think.
You're right there, because that's the one thing I'm sitting there thinking, why is the gate opened? And they dive through it and then it shuts down.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it doesn't shut down, but they close the iris.
Yeah, no, it's almost like the gate can sense if someone's coming towards it.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it does. Maybe it can. Who knows? Maybe the gate is a living organism. We'll find out in season 21. The gate is a living organism.
Well, it's an intelligent wormhole. It's an intelligent wormhole because
it is. You know what it is actually? Is every gate is actually a neuron, and they all connect together to form a neural network, and that's what it is. It's a brain.
But then again, they also mentioned the fact is they could change the addresses to help realign, which made zero sense to me.
Yeah, they were talking about compensating for astral drift or something.
Which made zero sense because they're only 8 points.
It's like it might be me saying, I'm 20 meters further away, so I'll dial an extra 0 on my mobile.
Exactly. That's
that's not how it works.
Well, see, I know I was in the US, which was 01. I'm now in Canada, so just dial 02.
But that's what they do, because they're not it's not like you're dialing in a spatial location. You're dialing like a mobile phone number is just an arbitrary number. It literally means nothing. All that happens is it obviously goes to a database to say that belongs to this phone and link it up, right?
This phone number links to this ISBN number, or
yeah, precisely. So they just go, and then that's it. But that's not how they set the gates. Again, this is where the rules get broken a wee bit. That's not what they're saying. The rules are there. That's not what they're laying out as the rules, right? But then they're playing differently. Anyway, right. So we've blathered enough about that.
Well, I think you're right about the fact is the way they let her escape. It would have been more interesting if they had let her go after a wee bit of something.
Yeah, I think they could have done something else there where it's like she gives them the technology. Even better, she gives them the technology and they think, oh great, we've got this totally sustainable power source.
And it fails.
She goes, wait, and then it fails, and it's like, oh, it was never working. It was just, or maybe they open up and find a AAA battery inside or something with an LED. That would have been hilarious, right? Or just something like that. But that's not, they don't do that, obviously. Anyway, so... so episode 3, I've said what I wanted to say on that. I thought it was hilarious that they just destroyed the food tray and the scoop, so that stuffed everyone else behind.
See, I never even caught that, I must admit. You're right. It's one of those ones you don't really notice until somebody points it out.
You don't think about it because it's like it's the end of the scene, and I think at that moment everyone's more focused on the fact that all the prisoners are now completely dejected, that they've missed their one chance at freedom. So that emotionally people are invested in that part rather than the fact that, oh, the tray's been destroyed. What are they going to eat now? Nothing. Anyway. Episode 4, we shall move on.
The Gatekeeper.
The Gatekeeper, yeah. One of my preferred episodes, if I have to say. Don't get me wrong, that's totally a personal opinion. It's not based on...
Did you say your least favourite or...?
Preferred episodes.
I liked it.
Simply...
I liked it because the fact is... was it Akavoni? Basically, Teal'c was back in it.
Oh, Kowalski, yeah. I do. He becomes he's quite a favourite for me as well, actually.
He does pop up once or twice later on.
I think he was a good character. It's a shame they killed him off.
Well, that's exactly. I thought he would have been a good backup, as in he was in charge of SG2.
That would have been good, actually, yeah, because I think maybe the problem is, I think from a show's point of view, from like this, you want to have a strong central cast that people focus in on.
Yeah.
And if I think maybe the problem is if you have a strong, like, let's say you had literally SG2 come in, what that does is that dilutes your cast. And not because, in a bad way, but not because the actors are bad or that. It's just like when you have such a good, strong personality there, what it does is it maybe splits the attention, and you're trying to form this. You're trying to get the audience to really like the group, and if you then pull in another character, that's you're I don't know, maybe you're asking them to like too many people, or just.
I understand what you're saying, but did you watch Friday Night Tights through with Neurotic?
No.
Did you not watch it last night? They're about Star Trek, the original series, right?
Yeah.
Right, they had the trifecta of the three main characters.
Spock, Kirk, and
McCoy.
Bones. Yeah,
right.
Of course.
Right.
You know what
that
is?
Three main characters, the trifecta, right?
You know what that is? So that's I can't remember the exact term, but there's a term in writing, so like writers, and it's like you get the quartet, so you get with the four, when you have 2 and 2 characters and they sort of play off like each other. So like this character will interact with this character in a certain way, and they'll basically, well, so with the trifecta, say, you've got characteristics that play off each other. So you've got Spock,
you've got brains, brawn, and empathy.
Heart. Yes, precisely. So they all play off. They play off each other, and that's what makes a good. That's what makes a good role. And you can do the same with, like, if you have 4 characters. When you design your 4 characters, you always try to make them so they cross over.
Yeah.
And that, I think in some ways that's what they've done with SG1.
Yeah, but that's what they're saying. That is the 3 main characters in the original series. Then you've got the other 4, which are subsidiary characters, not main characters, but not background characters. They're
precisely.
Michelle Nichols is Uhura. You had Chekhov, Sulu, and Scotty.
Yep.
And then you had Nurse Chapel, which was a 3rd tier character, and stuff like that. So you had other ones that were always on the bridge, but they may have had wee bit, or they were always in it, but they had smaller roles. So you had the 3 main characters, 4 subsidiary characters, and maybe 3 or 4 lower tier subsidiary characters.
For sure.
Whereas you look at it, you had 4 characters in Stargate: Teal'c, Carter, Jackson, and O'Neill. Right? You had Hammond as a major secondary character. You had Fraser.
Fraser.
As a major secondary character. You had next tier down was the technician. You had Walter. You had Siler.
Walter was the engineer, wasn't he?
Walter's the guy with glasses, the wee engineer. Sergeant.
I quite liked him, actually. I was no, for some reason I was always just interested when I saw him. I wish there was more of him in it.
Aye. There is 1 or 2 where he's in it a wee bit more later on.
Yeah.
But I think I liked his character because I suppose it was the one that I remember was when they're a news group or a news they're filming it, and they're saying things like, "So what do you do?" Well, when it's Chevron 1 encodes, I say Chevron 1 encoding. It reminded me. It made me think of Galaxy Quest, the Sigourney Weaver line. I've got one job and I'll do it properly, and that's the job that the computer says. She asks the computer something because it won't listen to anybody else. It tells her, and then she tells everybody else, although they all heard it. And he goes, really? And then she goes, I've got one job and I'll do it to the best of my ability. As in, she says to the computer what they ask, and the computer tells her and she tells them. And it was that. And that's what reminded me of that when I saw it. It had that aspect of as Chevron 1's encoded, so I tell everybody, Chevron 1 encoded.
I wonder how many times he said that over like the 10 series. I mean, do you think he picked up the script and he was just like flicking through it and he's like,
again.
Good, you know. It's like, oh, what's this? There must have been one day when he actually picked, remember that episode you're talking about where he picked up the script and he went, why is there more than 1 page in here? I've got lines in the show. Oh, it's such a good day.
But it is that aspect of it. So,
do you think he gets that at Comic-Con, like or conventions? Do you think he goes along to a convention and bands
please
like
Chevron
1 that he must get all. You think he's walking? maybe not so much now, but people may have recognised him in the street and be like, Chevron 1 encode.
Aye, I can imagine it. It's who was it? It says it was a it was is it Richard Bryars? Was it Richard Bryars? Who 1 foot in it, was it I don't believe it.
Oh, Victor Meldrew.
Victor Meldrew character.
Yeah, everyone says that to him when he. I think
he gets. No, again.
He was on Top Gear when Top Gear was still like on the BBC. So yeah, he did a show. I'm sure he did an episode on Top Gear. It was like reasonably priced celebrities in reasonably priced cars or something. And yeah, that was one of the questions he got, and he's like, he basically turned around. He basically said, I effing hate, or so, he bleeped him obviously, but it was basically, I hate the fact that people keep saying that to me.
Because they did it in Father Ted. They took the mickey out of it.
Oh, did they? I can't remember that. He wasn't in Father Ted though.
Eh?
He wasn't in Father Ted.
He was in one episode.
Ah, right.
And he played himself. And he was in a cave, and Father Ted walked up right behind him and goes, I don't believe it, in his ear, and he jumped out his skin.
Did you ever see? All right, there's a question. We're going to segue here for a second. Did you ever see the very final episode, 1 Foot in the Grave, where he dies?
No.
Or that was dark. That was such a dark show. I was like, what the? I won't. Right, if you've not seen it, I'm not going to spoil it for you. I mean, he dies, right? I mean, that's the whole point of the show, right? It's not at the end. It happens really early on. So yeah, if you read the description, it tells you that. But I tuned in to watch that, expecting like a really sort of light-hearted comedy, and by the end there's been like murder and like killing and poisoning, and I'm like, what has happened to this show?
A comedy?
Yeah. It's the final episode of 1 Foot in the Grave. I was like, my mind was blown when I watched that. I was like, what's going on? Why is this now a horror show? Why is this a murder show? It was almost like an episode of The Bill. Well, in fact, no, it was almost like an episode of Taggart. Honestly, it completely turned into whatever it was, whoever took it in that direction. Well done to you. But holy wows. Anyway. I suggest you watch that.
Oh, I definitely think I will.
Let's get back to episode 4, right? So here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Episode 4. You have this super duper virtual reality equipment, and you're part of a military organization whose sole purpose, right, is to bring back advanced technology that justifies the cost of your operation. Yeah?
Yes.
You have just found the technology for the latest and greatest, most advanced virtual reality in existence. Anywhere in the galaxy.
You can use it for training purposes. You can use it for anything. Physical training.
The gatekeeper wants to be in control. That's great. You come back to our reality. You come back to our world. Set up your business. You will be the richest person on the planet. You imagine how much people would pay for that?
Oh God!
You cannot seriously tell me
yourself physically there.
Exactly. You cannot tell me that did not cross their mind.
Napoleonic warfare. I want to be general. I want to be Napoleon.
I want to play I want to do Ready Player One, but not the crap version in the film. I want to do the Ready Player One in the book.
I want to play the book version, yes, or I want to be the main character in Sharp's Rifles, not the TV show, the book.
Precisely. So you pick your flavor. How come on, plot hole? Surely you would have taken that tech back. It's one guy against everyone.
All he needs to do is listen. We'll actually send you the technology because your people are actually now walking around. They need to be fed. They need to be.
Yeah.
We'll supply all that. You supply us with the technology and show us how we can go in and control it.
And the thing is, he's the gatekeeper, so he runs it all, so he controls it. So presumably he has a degree of knowledge.
So he should be able to build another set.
Precisely. And I thought that to me that was such a glaring plot hole from that whole thing. I thought, why would they not take that?
we will supply people for you. You go in, and these are the things we want them to learn and practice.
Yeah. I mean, I just think there's so many things that could have done with that. That was basically the holodeck, right?
Yeah.
So you think of all the Star Trek holodeck episodes you've got. You can put a couple of those into Stargate quite easily. Anyway, I was just when I was watching it was saying it's one of my more favourite episodes. Almost seems contradictory because it is one of the ones with, I think, the weirdest, biggest plot hole, or the biggest unanswered question of, well, why did you not use that and do some more of it? Anyway,
see the one thing I found best about it was it had good comedy and good tragedy all rolled in together.
Yeah, no, that's true.
They obviously had over the top tragedy in there as well.
No, it's good though, because that's what makes a good show. I always thought that's what made Fools and Horses really good, is they weren't afraid to go to sort of quite I don't want to say dark, that's maybe not the right way, but tragic, tragically sad, sad elements. Because the thing about comedy, and Stargate was always meant to be a show about comedy, is that comedy is always better if it's preceded by something that makes you sad. And it's as weird as that sounds, but when you play on that,
natural.
Yeah, and it brings it makes it more. It just makes it more. I don't know what the word is. Emphasizes it more, maybe.
It is definitely more natural, so it is. And
that's the thing. And I'm not just making that up. That's professional comics use that.
No, you look at the aspects of the thing, right? How many times it's a very harrowing aspect of your life, right? We've all done it. You've been at a funeral. You've seen an accident, and this boing pops up, and it's so stupid that you're going to laugh if you see it. Yeah, it's the most inappropriate time to do it, but you can't stop yourself because you've got most people, I think, have got this inbuilt. If you don't laugh, you cry.
Yeah, it's a self-defense mechanism. I get that. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, no, it helps. It's good in that episode. But the one thing I thought, so here's another thing I thought they could have done really well with that episode, right? Is by this point in the series, right, we kind of know about Jack, right? So we know he's a special forces. We know he's lost his son. He had a wife. So, like, in terms of the background, we've kind of seen Jack and met him and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Daniel, we know a little bit about him, so we know he's an archaeologist. He was in the main film, all that kind of stuff. People we don't know anything about really are Sam and Teal'c.
Well, to an extent, Sam, she is, because they had to actually sort of mention it, and they actually, I don't think they overplayed it, but I think the aspect of it, how about she'd had to give a description of her past life story, as in, I've flown here, I've done these type of missions, I could fly.
Yeah, no, yes. You're given that in episode 1, I think it is, right in the start, where she's described her past, and I suppose Teal'c, to a certain extent, you could make the same argument. You could say that Teal'c's like, former first prime of Apophis, I've done all this. And so you get that background, but I think if you're to put on a scale, and again, this is just my opinion, if you put on a scale, you've seen more of a background of O'Neill, you've seen more of a background of Daniel, you've not really seen it of Carter, and you've not really seen it of Teal'c. So I almost thought that episode would be a really great opportunity to introduce their characters' backgrounds, to really give pick some really personal experience of Teal'c, like that shows something about who he is, or it's a defined, maybe a term. How about the point when Teal'c finally realised there are false gods? Now that would have been good, right? So let's go back to the point in history where Teal'c, up to that point, was he believed Apophis was an actual god, and then in this event something happened, something really horrific. So like maybe he had to wipe out an entire village, and we run through the same, it's the same thing happens over and over again. He wipes out the village, and every time he tries to do it differently, the village still gets wiped out. But we learn that that's the point where Teal'c finally switched and realised that Apophis wasn't actually a god. I think that would be such a cool episode. I would be like, man, yeah, this is really cool.
But they had to have the one of both of them, as it were, one from each group. Otherwise, they would have had them all separate. So it would have been four different stories. And they had to give a reason. So the Aquila and Carter's blood because of the Tok'ra, and him because of the Gould. That was the reason to keep them out of it. I know what you're saying, but if they did go down that route, it would have sort of changed it, because there would have been four separate ones.
See, that's the thing, though. I mean, like, from a writer's point of view, I think you could have easily just flipped that on its head and said the only reason it was Teal'c and Carter was because of the previous symbiote.
So that means because everybody on the planet who's in the virtual reality has to be in that.
Or you could just, I think from a writer point of view, then you could just say it didn't stop them, and it's just like they happen to have the more powerful memories.
That would work, right?
Or we just picked them at random,
And truthfully, I thought the one with Teal'c and stuff like that, because he says it's a very strong memory. Sorry, I think the memory it would have been the strongest was his son dying.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, actually. But then they had to find a way of bringing them back in. But they could have brought him back in for the funeral. Surely he would have been there for the son's funeral.
Exactly.
No, I just felt like that was a missed opportunity in terms of trying to introduce the character and give him a bit more backstory. Definitely for Teal'c, and I felt for Carter, okay, great. They've mentioned all these flyby missions over wherever. Why not where she gets shot down?
The good thing is they do it later on with Teal'c. Teal'c gets a very centric one. He had one in the last season when you met his son.
That's true.
When he was going to get the Gould implanted, and the wife says how their life has been destroyed because he did what he did.
That's true. I suppose. I guess it's a question of about building up character or background.
I think the only one you're right they didn't do with in season 1 was Carter, because Jackson we already knew about because of the movie. And Neil we sort of knew about because of the movie. However, they had the one about the crystalline one. It gave Jack his backstory about his son and his wife, how his marriage broke down. Then they did the one with Teal'c about his son about to be implanted, and it gave backstory and what happened to his wife and how it affected his family and stuff like that. The very first episode is Sharee getting kidnapped and stuff like that. So they basically
that's Daniel's backstory.
That's Daniel's backstory. That's his motivation. Carter, they've still not really given her a backstory one.
Yeah, that's and I'm sure they probably have in the later seasons. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Well, the nearest to get to it is in this season, I think. When they introduce his father.
I suppose that's, to my mind, I suppose that is maybe the motivation in some ways. It's like you introduce Dad, he goes away and becomes a Tok'ra. Maybe that's like part of the motivation for like what she's doing and stuff. I don't know.
The reason she's doing it is because she's smart, she's kick-ass, she's no a bookworm, she's a go-getter, a doer. And I think that is her motivation, is scientific curiosity and an adventurous side. So the motivation why she's doing it, the other three have got motivation why they're doing it. She's been assigned because she's got the brains, the capability to do it. But I think she's doing it, her motivation is pure scientific. Wow, let's go and see. Oh, look at that, that's fantastic. I want to go and see it because I'm the brains of the outfit.
No, that's totally fair. That's totally cool.
I think her motivation is there, but her backstory is slightly different from her motivation, because she doesn't need to have a motivation except as she's been given an opportunity to travel other worlds and look for technology and meet aliens and stuff like that. So she didn't need to have a reason why she wanted to do it. She's been allocated to the team, which she was. However, there's still not really a backstory about how she got there.
Yeah, no, that I think that's maybe more of my point. It's just that it's how did Carter get to where she is, and maybe just like you pick a scene like maybe she gets shot down in a jet, or if we're talking about like powerful memories, maybe it's like maybe she blows up like a building. It's meant to be full of insurgents and turns out to be full of kids or something like that. I don't know. Maybe that's maybe a bit dark for the show, but I don't know. There's a lot of I don't know. Anyway, I just felt that episode might have just been a little bit more interesting if it had been Teal'c and Carter. It was just interesting. I thought that they picked Jackson and Daniel.
I think you're right in that respect. For the simple fact is, I think you're right in that respect. It was a lost opportunity to do other things, because they'd already with Jack, they had to actually bring in the Teal'c thing, because if it was about Jack and about his strongest memory, it would be about his son. So they had to change that, and they changed it as in it was the gatekeeper who chose that memory because it was a more interesting memory. But then again, Daniel's mum and dad dying, that's not an interesting memory, that is just one about how you would see emotional. Jack's memory. It's an emotional one. So Jack's memory would be just as emotional for his son rather than his colleagues.
I don't know, surely you'd pick a more, fun memory. I mean, there must be a lot more fun memories than... anyway, we'll keep it PG, but there might be more fun memories that they could have explored, I'm sure.
If they decided to go down and saying this is the most interesting memory, so it's not the most emotionally charged memory or whatever the wording they used, if it was all about how it was the most interesting memory they were in because they're bored, they're doing it to keep them interested, whereas it would work a bit better. Whereas the way they're doing it, with the way they did it, was almost implying this was a strong emotional memory that we're making you play out, and you should be able to change it. The son's one would have been better for Jack because that is the most emotional thing that happened in his life.
I think the memory they went with was a memory that, they say it, I mean, Dwight says it to O'Neill. It's like when O'Neill says, "Why are you here?" and says, "Is this not the memory you keep going back over in your head over and over again?" So it's, I guess what they're saying there is it's like this is the memory that somehow Dwight has picked up and said, or maybe the system detects that this is the memory that is they think about a lot, and it's interesting from a personal point of view. Oh, this is action, they're shooting guns and stuff.
Yeah,
let's visit that again. And so from Daniel's point of view, it's like, oh, this is a memory that's relived over and over again. Let's go and visit that one.
But that's the same thing about his son, because you remember in the movie and he was contemplating suicide, so it was a memory it kept going over and over and over. That's what I'm saying is if that was the criteria for it, the same for Daniels, it would be the same for Jack. And it's the fact is they wanted to bring in Kowalski and make it a bit more action orientated. I think that's why they went down that route. But given that reason, with his backstory, it sort of didn't gel quite as well.
I've picked a plot hole in this episode again. It's turning me off a wee bit actually. It's actually another reason I think they should have gone with Teal'c rather than O'Neill. Is that okay? So one of his strongest memories is he's invading this I think it was a German stronghold or something like that for a Russian.
It was a Russian compound to rescue someone.
It was a Cold War something in Germany. Anyway,
I bet it was a Russian compound in the Eastern Bloc.
All right. Right. Okay. So they're going in to do that. What do you think is going to be a stronger memory? That in the Cold War, or nuking a spaceship on an alien planet?
More recent.
I don't know about you, but I'm more recent, so I don't know about you, but
or rescuing Skarra.
Or rescuing Skarra. I'm quite sure that nuking an alien spaceship on an alien world would somehow stand out in your mind a bit more. I presume what would have been a fairly sort of standard. I mean, okay, people died in it, but I mean, it would have been a relatively standard sort of operation, I guess, for a special forces operative. Whereas going through the Stargate for the first time and blowing up an alien ship might not be so standard. Anyway, I don't know. It just occurred to me. I thought maybe that would just do it.
But that's what I'm saying. You could work it with the Skarra getting kidnapped, because how many times did he try? He must have been going over. I've left these people here, and they got through, and these people got killed, and this person got taken, and this person got taken. Whereas if I had secured here and I secured there, this might not have happened. It's a more recent one, as you said. It's going through the Stargate again to find. So in that respect, the idea behind it was good, but I think you're right that you could start picking plot holes, and that's the problem if you go too deep into this.
So let's not go too deep. Let's move on to episode 5.
On the whole, I thought it was a good episode. It was humorous enough. It had enough bits of tragedy, but sometimes it went a wee bit over the top with the Daniel story. Watching his mum and dad get killed all the time. When they were basically talking to him. Carter just stood there.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing as well. I mean, these people are meant to be super intelligent, yet they can't figure out how to adhere to OSHA building regulations, which is don't stand underneath a massive block of stone that's been held up by a thin chain.
Especially when it looks like polystyrene.
Well, that as well, but I just thought that was such a flimsy premise. Like, who would do that? I mean, like, no one is that stupid, and they're both meant to be doctors. Archaeologists, people who would you presume have specialised in movement of heavy objects.
So they know how to secure things, so it doesn't drop on them when they're actually doing it. But you think building it inside a place, then they would have been building professionals doing it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure, like, safety regulations didn't get invented in 1998, the year after they did all that, or however old Jack.
Well, so you're talking about it was at least 15, 20 years before it happened to him. So if you're in the 90s, that was the 70s. So say early 70s, whatever. Yeah, I mean, they weren't a lot less brainy at that time. So yes, they wouldn't be standing under it going, bring it that heavy thing, it weighs 2 tons, down a bit more. I just
thought that was stupid. Like, you've got two really intelligent people. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, people do stupid things, and I've seen that. Well, actually, when I said that, I've actually seen I've seen really intelligent people do some really stupid things. So, actually, I backtrack. I can believe that someone would stand underneath a 2-ton block of stone.
That's somebody standing under it. But how many of the workers all around them just letting them?
Yeah, that's more the point. It's like, but they could. I mean, the thing is that to me is just where it felt almost like, dare I say it, lazy writing, because I'm sure there could have been if you spent maybe half an hour, there could have been a reason or some other way, or even, why not even just have them standing to the side and then it breaks and then falls onto them that way? And I mean, that at least is just like, well, they were standing not underneath it. They just didn't predict the pillar was going to fall and crush them.
Exactly, aye.
And that just, I'm not a writer, and that took me 5 seconds to come up with. So,
but that's just a standard thing, so why would they be standing under it? Give us a reason why they're standing under it. Maybe the fact is it wasn't meant to go there, it was meant to go there, but it slipped off a harness and spun and hit the wall beside it, which knocked that on top of them. Because they were standing to this well out the way, but they snapped and it swung and hit something else which fell on them. It's that type of thing. It was just a case of, as you said, I think it was a wee bit lazy writing, and it was over dramatic. Because it was a case of, right, now we want to get something that will make him cry and act like a wee kid. Let's kill his parents. In such a stupid way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But, I'd say it was a problem for me because it stood out. Like, I saw it and I was like, oh, that's kind of just taking me out of it a wee bit there. I've seen it now and I'm like, I can't unsee that, Anyway. So I'm also conscious of the time, so we're only halfway through.
I know.
Episode 5, Need. So we'll speed it up. Episode 5, I thought was episodic. Very funny. I thought Daniel played an excellent heroin addict. I thought he nailed it perfectly.
I quite agree with that, but could you do us one wee favour?
Yes.
Cover until I get back?
Yeah, sure. No problem. Go for it. So I'll just talk about my little bit of spiel here. The bit that the episode I thought the bit I thought was most problematic about that whole episode, not that I didn't like it, was why did they destroy the sarcophagus at the end? That just, I thought, why did they do that? I mean, okay, we understand that it can be dangerous with overuse over time. Cool, got you. But you also have a device that can cure almost any injury, literally from the brink of death. It can cure almost any illness, almost again from the brink of death. Surely having that in reserve would be quite handy. Like, I don't know, the other 1,000,001 times that Stargate SG1 have actually used it. So it's not like they're saying they've never used it again. They use it again throughout the rest of the series as a means of bringing the characters back. So why not just say, well, let's not destroy that super valuable piece of alien technology. Let us take it back with us so we can use it in a pinch, and we'll keep it in the medical bay just in case. So I thought that confused me on episode 5. Is why they did that. Otherwise, as I say, I thought it was really good that they did the whole Daniel being super addicted thing. I thought that was quite funny. Episode 6. Trying to remember episode 6. So one thing that struck me from episode 6 is when Thor. That's right. So when Thor comes down and they're looking for Thor's weaponry, and at the end they've got the moment where Thor is sort of actually comes down. The sort of Thor mothership comes down, and they're like beaming up all the people. They're beaming up all the Jaffa from the planet's surface that's protected by Thor. I thought it was very unusual one thing that stood out to me is the sound effect for the beaming was the same sound effect, I think, that they use in Atlantis for the ships, the alien ships in Atlantis, the Wraith. I thought that's very funny that it's exactly the same sound effect from this season, which would have been filmed in 1998, 1999. And yet you had Atlantis, which was filmed in maybe 2010, something like that. And they used exactly the same sound effect. So
Are you still on episode 5, Need?
No, I've moved on to episode 6. I was just mentioning
Just a wee quick thing about 5, just a wee thing. They mentioned that in Need, they also mentioned the same idea about the Gould and the Tok'ra. They did. I thought nothing else was remarkable in that one apart from that aspect that they mentioned it again, and it shows Daniel, as you said, about the junkie Daniel.
You know what I thought was so stupid about the episode is why did they destroy the sarcophagus at the end?
Yeah, I thought that was the silliest thing because he told her that she'll get withdrawal symptoms and she goes, no problem, bang.
And it's like, well, hang on, surely keeping that in reserve would be quite handy. So maybe we want to take that back to Stargate with us.
Or even leave it there. So if any of your workers get injured, put them in there maybe. And that way they're not allowed to use it maybe no more than once a year. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, surely there's got to be options, like moderation. I mean, it's like, let's just think of it as having a drink. You know, let's be moderate. Let's not get absolutely binged. Let's not binge on it. Yeah. We'll just have a wee drink every now and again. It'll be fine. Well, I quite agree with that. It's basically, I thought that was a wee bit weird because the sarcophagus was, if somebody's dying, put them in it.
Precisely.
Tell them that if you go in it a second time, you will die. So people only go in the most dire circumstances. It's not just something you used as in, I got a paper cut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I can just see it. They bring it back to Stargate. Someone stubs their toe. It's like, right, I'm just nipping to the sarcophagus. Big queue of people just waiting to get in. Like someone's got a wee plaster on their pinky and
got
you know.
toothache. And I don't like the dentist, that type of thing. But I think, yes, you're right. They mentioned the sarcophagus and how it showed Daniel, so it was a follow-up from that episode with the Tok'ra saying the reason they're different from the Gould is because of that.
Yeah.
Then they actually show it.
But why not take it back and study it?
Yeah.
Or reverse engineer, or a million other things that you.
Oh, aye.
I mean, that's surely that's that. I mean, that piece of technology. See, this is a problem, right? This is where you establish the rules of the show, which is they're going out to get technology, and then they let's face it, that would probably have been the most advanced piece of technology they will ever have seen.
Yeah. Even if, as you said, they only use it once in a blue moon, and they are aware that if people use it more than X amount of times, it changes their personality and they have to do withdrawal symptoms. So yes, if somebody's got cancer, they put them through it a couple of times, but only once, maybe a month, rather than it looked like he was doing it every night, and I can't imagine. Yeah, I mean that type of thing. So yes, it just seemed weird. I mean that when you think about it, up to that moment in time, maybe other than a few Death Gliders that they might have been able to have stolen, that will literally have been the most advanced piece of tech. Remember?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think they turned them into the whatever they call it later on, the F1,
F303s.
F303s, yeah. So they used that, but no, I just felt that was a missed opportunity. If I was reading the report, I'd be like, why did you leave this behind?
Well, I quite agree in that one. It just seemed a wee bit silly to destroy it when they didn't need to because there's no Gould there and they like me. But I just wanted that was the one or two things that I wanted to say about that. So we'll go back on to Thor's chariot.
Yes, episode 6. I mean, we come back to one of the cast. I forget her name from season 1.
Gawain.
Gawain, yes. Come back to Gawain.
She was Tamsin Kensley. She played the Gawain in the first one. She was the one that had the ghoul. No, it wasn't. She was the one who was the village elder whose friend was the previous host. Yeah,
I quite like this episode. It reminded me of the Crystal Maze when they've got the challenges they've got to get through to get to Thor's.
Funnily enough, I was thinking along those lines as well because I'd seen an old Crystal Maze, not the one with Awali, the one that was in. It played Moss. I can never pronounce his surname, so I'm not even going to try.
I've seen quite a lot of the Crystal. In fact,
the original one with
both.
What do you call him? Oh, he was
bald guy.
The bald guy, Richard. Was it Richard? He basically played the butler in Rocky Horror Picture Show. That is him.
I didn't know. I didn't know he was an actor as well.
He was in the Rocky Horror Picture Show with Tim Curry. Tim Curry played Frankfurter, and he played the butler.
Okay, I didn't know that at all. No, I loved the Crystal Maze when I was younger. I almost want to dare say I think I've actually seen, and this is going to be incredibly sad, and I can't believe I'm going to say this recorded, but I think I've seen every single episode of the Crystal Maze.
I'll give you another one. Do you want another one?
What's that?
Do you want another one to think about?
What to watch? Well, let me just finish this bit and I'll... Adventure games?
The adventure game. Remember the one with the aliens?
No, so wait, was this the one where they had they had to do an assault course at the end or something like that?
No, this is the one where they had the alien coins and stuff like that, and they had to go through a bit of a maze, and it was logic puzzles and everything.
What was it called?
The adventure game. I'll send you a link to it. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'll send you a link to it, but it's corny, but
that's cool. Give it an episode to watch.
Because the very early ones are a lot cornier. Season 1 was so corny. Season 2 was a bit more polished, but it was still corny because, you know what I mean? But it was good because it was logic puzzles. And it was, I quite liked it for that. Not as good as the Crystal Maze. Crystal Maze was more upscale, fast, in your face. These ones were they were doing logic puzzles.
I was always jealous of the Crystal Maze, but I always wanted to be on the Crystal Maze.
So did I.
I
could do the ones where you had to. I couldn't throw anything, couldn't act, but any of the ones you could puzzle out. I could do that. We've done we've done an escape room twice.
Well, that's it. We've done the escape room twice and beat it, so we could easily do the Crystal Maze, I reckon. I would love to do all the. See, that's the thing. I remember even as a kid, I was watching all the physical challenges, just going, "Why are these people failing? It looks so easy."
Well, I can understand that because I'm basically fitless and stuff like that, so I can understand why people fall and can't balance or trip over things. I look at it and say that's dead easy, but I know fine well if it was me doing it.
Well, I remember there was one room in particular that I always thought was super fun, and it was climbing through all the cages, and that reminds me of like the fireman cages. So when you do your BA training, you have to climb through like all these sort of they smoke up the room, and then you have to go through with your BA set on. You've got to climb through all these small spaces, and I always remember seeing that as a kid, thinking that looks so much fun. And when I actually did it, well, not that. When I did the BA training, I thought, this is just like the Crystal Maze. It's great. I loved it. But I always remember just thinking I would love to have done that. Must be sore in the knees though. I imagine it'd be quite sore in the knees crawling through all those cages.
Yeah.
You had to find these digital controllers.
Do you know the nearest I got to that, apart from the puzzle? The nearest I got to feeling like that is I was scuba diving.
Ah, right,
because you've got the mask and you're having to actually learn how to sink, float, move, turn, stuff like that. It's an orientation thing. You know what I mean? You want to go right down, you have to let out the air as you're going forward so you can sink and do that and let go so you balance, you pump it up a bit so it'll come up. Stuff like that. It was that aspect of it because you're in an environment you're not used to.
Sure.
And that's I quite liked, and that's what the nearest I got to doing some of those physical challenges. I suppose it's like watching the I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out Here, and they're crawling through bugs. You're sitting there thinking, no!
Yeah. Do you ever remember a show? It was done by the same guy that played Crichton. In fact, it was Crichton himself. It was like the host. I mean, like the character Crichton.
Is this the Junkyard Challenge? Where they had...
No. It wasn't Junkyard Challenge. This was a kids show, but it was along the same idea. It was almost like a kids version of Crystal Maze, but it was actually the same guy. He hosted it, and the kids would be put into these challenges. Usually, I think it was like groups of 2. And I always remember this one. It was so weird. It's like they had these balls of slime that they had to like push buttons and it would activate little levers so like the ball would make its way down and you had to push it so it would catch the ball and roll along. But if you did it wrong, it would then fall and break open. It was a weird show, but
I can't even remember that one at all.
I think it was called. I feel like it was called the Elevator or something. It had something to do with the elevator. That's all I can remember. But I think it did anyway. Again, it was along the lines of that other that other kids show where like one guy was sort of blindfolded and put into the VR world, and the other ones had to direct them. It's like, right.
That was Dungeon forward, Master. That was an old Dungeon Master. That was the one. They had to wear the mask, and somebody else was watching it on the screen.
So it was like that sort of. I mean, not the virtual reality, but that genre of kids solving problems, and you had like the Dungeon Master. In this case, it was Crichton in that show. Anyway, I digress, and I will have to finish up soon. So
definitely, we'll fly through until we get another couple out.
Let's go with episode 7, shall we say?
Yeah, well, Thor's Chariot first. We'll finish Thor's Chariot.
All right.
Couple of things in this I noticed. Right, apart from you've got Herur, right? But that's his first really appearance, I think, Herur, as one of the other Gould sisters.
Hera. It's not Hera. Herur? No, he's in... Oh, no, it's all blurring again. Was he in an episode before that, or is that in
he might have actually been in another one, maybe one in the... But I think the guy who played Herur played another... just a Jaffa in an earlier episode, but this is he plays a Gould.
Right.
He plays the Gould Herur.
So he's a system lord then, isn't he? Because he's one of the system.
Yeah.
Again, this is another weird aspect of, like, if he's like meant to be a system lord and a god, why is he down in the dirt rocking about with the troops?
No, but I think he's actually a guild, not a system lord. I think it's like you've got the king, the lords of the manor, and then you've got the feudal lords, and then you've got the Jaffa, as in the knights. So it's like that level, and the system lords are the powerful ones, because Apophis is never mentioned really as a system lords, because the system lords are trying to stop him doing this. I think the system lords are a council of guilds. Then you've got the lower ones, and then you've got other guilds who are who are underneath, subservient.
I could be wrong in this, but I thought Braytak actually, in one of the episodes, he says something along the lines of, Apophis can't be seen to be weak because the other system lords will then replace him. Or
maybe that's it. He's one of the system lords, but there's other guilds underneath them who are subservient to him.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Do you know what I found was weird? The first season, maybe even the first 2 seasons, whereas they had the kids. So the 2 guilds would get another host for their child.
Yeah.
And then later on, it's a child of a guild would inherit it, and they would become the Narcissus, and they're bad things to get. But yet they started off with them, the 2 guilds going with their other child, and a family. That type of thing. It's just like, because you've got Khalil.
That's a good point. Unless Apophis is just so old that maybe, eventually the ghoul itself dies.
Aye.
It just happens to be that it takes hundreds of years
and the sarcophagus keeps it alive for a lot longer.
Yeah, exactly. So it might just be the case that both the host and the ghoul now for Apophis are dying, and it's just a case of the fact that he's wanting to have a son to carry on the legacy.
But it's just the way they mention it later on. But at the moment, they're still going down that route. Couple of other things as well in this episode. I don't know if you noticed it. Up until this point, except from the films, the only Jafar you saw were the Serpent Guards, as in Apophis. Yes. This is the first one, except the movie, when you had the Horus Guard, which were the same Horus Guard in the movie. The one with it wasn't an eagle head, was it an eagle head?
Yeah, it was an eagle head, because you had the snake head and the eagle head.
So up until now, you always only ever saw the Horus, the Serpent Guard. This is the first time, except from the movie, where you saw the Horus Guard.
That might have been a bit of what I think. I don't know if retconning is the right term, but I suspect in the movie they probably just had different heads to make it look cool, and they would have all been under the same boss, I feel like. Whereas now what they're doing is, I guess they're doing that deliberately.
But see, the movie, I think you saw 2 of them, and I think they had the Horus head. Because Horus was possibly. But I think the reason why they didn't go with them initially is, on the movie they had to use the CGI for it to disappear, and in this one, when actually not in this one, another one, the reason they don't have it is to show it declining, whereas the Serpent Guard, the head went up and the shield went down so they could see the face. The Horus Guard, they can't do that. No, had to disappear.
It was in the episode where they go to save Teal'c's son.
Yeah, family. That's a couple of episodes away.
And what happens in there is that he's wearing the Horus headgear.
No.
And
It's not family. It's not family. It's the one with Daniel Jackson's Sharee, who is pregnant.
Oh, you're right. Actually, yeah, you're quite right.
Because that's the one he actually pretends to be the Horus Guard to take the baby.
So he's wearing the Horus headgear, and you see the Horus headgear come down, but it's all CG. Whereas when they're wearing the serpent gear, it's animatronics. So it's a physical prop that actually comes down.
Yeah. And I think that's why they didn't go with the Horus Guard. Whereas And I think that's the only reason, because they would have had to do CG, or else they would have had to have some convoluted way why it didn't do it now.
And the problem is with the CG, when you watch the scene, it isn't actually that good. There's a lot of Teal'c, because I mean, okay, you can tell it's CG, but there's wee bits like the fact that they've obviously at that point they didn't have the technology or didn't have the budget for like motion tracking. So you can see that the Teal'c's body, he's obviously the actor's trying to keep it still, but he moves a bit. And this is just kind of stuff I tend to notice now. I watch a lot of, don't know why, I watch a lot of visual effects stuff. But you see, like his backplate, it remains stationary, and he's sort of moving, and it's sort of, so you can see the juxtaposition of the movement, I suppose, or it stays stationary where he's moving, and that means that if they didn't have the ability to track it, it means any scene where they wanted to have the head removed or come down would have meant that the actor would have had to be completely stationary.
Aye.
And that in itself would be too limiting, I think, for what they want to do, because there's plenty of scenes where they've got the serpent guard head, and it's like you can see him walking around and go, and it comes down, and it looks good. It looks really good when they do that. But obviously, I
still want to actually do one for cosplay.
I was actually thinking that as well. I actually quite fancied going as maybe Jack O'Neill or something like that, and just getting kitted up in the.
Well, I'm actually thinking about going as a Jaffa.
Oh, but you are a Jaffa. I've been waiting all night to say that joke, mate. Sorry.
All I need is a tattoo. But the aspect, I've always wanted to do it because EVA foam, to an extent, I've got a bit of, so it shouldn't be too difficult. It'd be making the staff.
Yeah, I actually ended up cutting up to curtain poles today. That would have been good for the staff.
I've got poles. It's getting the design round the poles. Because normally when I'm cutting and drawing and stuff like that, I can do it, but because it's more 3D, it becomes more difficult. For
that, you'd want to use putty. I think, to be honest, the best thing you would do for that is probably just like get the main pole itself, and then just where you have like the trigger and the other end, just get some putty that sets, just squish it on so it's like a big lump. And then just like press it in with your fingers.
You forgot my dodgy hand.
Well, do it one at a time then. But just press one in, press the other in, and just let it set. And then you can sand it smooth, and then carve I guess like the runes into it. And then for the end, you could maybe, I guess, do something similar, just a big lump on the end of it.
Well, you could do an EVA foam to get that thingy, and then put the putty on that.
I'm just Anyway, it's now 10:15, so we need to finish up. So,
right, definitely, aye.
Episode 7.
Well,
I've completely forgotten.
It's Thor's Chariot one. That's the one with Gawain and the first introduction of the.
No, that's episode 6. That's what we were just talking about.
Oh, sorry. Episode 7 is Message in a Bottle. They discover the ancient artifact that they bring back. That's the one where he gets skewered.
Yeah. Who's that? Okay,
that's the one they used the previous episode. You remember that one? The Broca Divide. This is the one Sam Carter says to him, he says, this thing's been transmitting since Neanderthals were the dominant species on Earth. And Jack looks at him and says, that takes me back. That refers back to the Broca Divide in season 1, where he became the Neanderthal. Remember the one with the dark
with the virus,
light? And that was the virus, and it made them all violent and changed their features to be more.
I never even thought of that actually. I didn't even think of that reference.
So the reference says that takes me back was him referring to the fact that he was very, very
he was a
Neanderthal, and I thought that was really good. And after you said that earlier on, that is one of the ones I remember that they sort of referred back to. And it's a comic one because he just looks at her as if to say, that takes me back. And it was very funny.
See, I thought he was just making like the I'm an old guy joke. But I prefer Europe. I prefer that idea. I think that's much nicer.
It's only because that episode, obviously, yes, if we were watching it as it was coming out, it's something you would go, I recognise that from somewhere. What episode was that? But because we've obviously watched it over the last couple of weeks to catch up.
But the thing is, the only slight problem with that argument, I would say, is that if you were watching this as it was coming out on TV, you would have seen the Neanderthal episode probably about a year ago.
That's what I'm saying. That doesn't hold up as well. If you've seen it a year ago,
you wouldn't remember that, though, would you?
You would think, where did that come from? Unless you've got the video or whatever, or that type of thing. So yes, but it is a sort of throwaway, because it can come across as I'm an old guy joke, or for somebody in the know a bit better can remember. I think it.
I want to believe that it's the in the know one. I want to believe it's referring to that episode.
I think it was, but I think you're right. It has got the two aspects of it. As in, if you didn't know that, it doesn't fall flat because it becomes an old man joke.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I think those kind of jokes work because they don't expect you to know. It's just it's a nice joke. However, if you know a bit more, then it becomes a bit clever.
Yeah.
But that's sure. and I thought that was quite a good way of doing it, because everything they tried to do, Sylar tried to cut it with him and stuff like that, and it turns out they needed to do that to communicate.
One thing about the episode that made me wonder is, like, okay, so you're bringing back all this potentially really deadly and dangerous stuff. Why not just set up a site somewhere that you get into first? So have, like, I mean, we talk about the alpha site. Why not just have an alpha site that you get into first? Where you set up an experiment with all this stuff
as well.
Well, yeah. So I mean, so you got the alpha and the beta sites, and all that. Why not just have a site somewhere you get into first, where you explore all this stuff, and if it goes tits up, that's fine. At least the human world isn't going to get.
Yes, but there is two aspects to that. First one is, I would say, is you can get the building materials, the experts and all that to build all that stuff there. You need to get them through that gate and get them to make sure they don't tell anybody about it, build it on the other side.
But you do have the potential that you could bring back a disease that, quote, wipes out the planet.
Well, they've got a bomb back. It nearly did that, as in Cassandra.
They've done several items. So, like, I mean, if you think, you've had Cassandra, you've had the various viruses, you've had this thing, which, if it had gone unchecked, would have taken over the entire world. It just seems to me like, I don't know, like, and actually, to counter your argument, in season, in the Cassandra episode, if I'm not mistaken, they're actually on an SG site that's off-world.
They were.
And that's already
the one they're looking at for the black hole, so basically they were doing that.
Yeah, that's right. And in that episode, they've got a base, they've got an observatory, they've got, like, what looks like, I mean, in the distance, anyway, from the Stargate, it looks like quite a substantial structure.
No, but remember, there was a civilization there already.
Yeah, no, I know, but what I'm saying is, like, so they've obviously had the ability to set up resources and build quite a big structure. Like, they've built a big observatory. So surely you could stretch to have a building next to a Stargate somewhere that just allows you to, I don't know, check the thing out for a couple of days before you take it back to Earth, where it then wipes out the entire planet. You know what I mean? Just I'm not saying it would have to be like Cheyenne Mountain Mark II or Cheyenne Mountain Mark II. But just like a factory unit or something.
I think
just
to an extent, yes, but because of the amount of, as you're saying, they need the testing and all that there, they would need to actually.
I think if you're, I'm going to stick by my guns on this one.
I thought there was a weird bit because I'm sure they had a beta site as well before, but is that not the one where all the bug things attacked them? No,
that's the alternative. That's the alternative reality. So when Daniel goes through the mirror to the alternative place in season 1, their emergency site is the beta site, whereas in the normal universe, the escape site, they call it the alpha site. So it's just that's sort of.
No, but is there not one in S? It might have actually been under.
Oh, later on they've got.
They've got a research site, which all the wee the wee bugs. Because they do start putting sights out about, and there's wee bugs in it chases them around. The light bugs, and you have to use the zats to actually keep them away.
I can't remember that one. I do know that they've got the. I do remember they have like the Phoenix sight, I think they call it, and that's in the later seasons. Like, yeah, it must be. Well, it must be like season 6 or something like that.
Uh-huh.
That's the backup site when everything goes. If Earth is lost, they go to the Phoenix site.
Yeah.
Hence the name, Phoenix rises from the ashes and all that.
Yep.
Anyway, again, time is marching on, so I need to go.
Yeah, definitely. Point. But thank you for joining us, and we will take part 2.
Yeah, we'll do part 2 in again, I suppose 2 weeks.
2 weeks time.
Maybe next week.
If we can make it next week, we'll try. But if not, it'll be 2 weeks time. Please join us. We've had 2 or 3 viewers initially.
Well, I've watched. I told my mum about it, so maybe she's watched.
She's keeping an eye on you. I've told Rachel about it, so she's not watching me.
Yeah, so she's definitely watching that.
But I
did tell Annie.
We've had 3 concurrent viewers, but we will see. But thank you very much, everybody who's been watching. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want some more. Gordon and I will be more than happy to go through every season, even if it takes us a year or 2. Then Absolutely. We've got things like Firefly, Battlestar Galactica, Warehouse 13, Eureka is the next one. Because I've only watched a wee bit of Eureka. Gordon's the expert in the Eureka. He's going to be hosting it.
I love Eureka. No, I'll preface that by saying I know Eureka is not set again. It's not set in Sky on Fire, but from my personal point of view, one of my favourite shows. So
but that's the point. It's all to do with getting people to understand about it and watch it. Because if you don't know half the references we're making to the Zat Nicotel and such like, why are you not watching Stargate? Get watching it.
Yeah, get watching it.
That's the way I've got to say. But Gordon, thank you very much for joining me tonight. And
no problem, Pete. Thank you.
Definitely looking forward to more. And subscribe if you want more, and we'll be here. So until next week, Gordon, you want to say your Cheerios?
See it.
And that was Gordon. And from PJ Maybe, remember, I'm not old, I'm classic. PJ Maybe, out.